Today's devotion is called Corporate Worship, and we are on day 147, and we are on May the 27th if you're following along on the calendar. And we are trekking through the book of Jeremiah. We are on Jeremiah 7 through 9 as the morning rinse. And then the featured verse is Jeremiah 7:2. So if you haven't read the morning rinse of Jeremiah 7 through 9, go ahead and read that and then come on back and let's discuss this featured verse. So Jeremiah 7:2 says, "Stand in the gate of the Lord's house and proclaim there this word and say, hear the word of the Lord, all you of Judah who enter by these gates to worship the Lord." So I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but I remember when things started shutting down due to the global pandemic caused by COVID-19. It was around March of the year 2020, and there were some countries that developed restrictions that were so tight that residents were confined to their home for months with this threat of even being arrested if they left their premises. Do you remember that, guys? The United States actually left much of this decision up to every single state and their local principalities. So it wasn't like a countrywide decision. It was a state and local principalities. And so there were some states that were like, I'm not going to be doing this. And then there were other states that were like, you have to stay in your house. For the first few months of this virus here in America, one commonality, though, was the mass closings of businesses and restaurants and even churches. I remember in my industry in real estate, there were some states that would not allow for open houses to occur anymore. There was some decisions that were made within brokerages. There were real estate agents that opted to not do any work or showings or anything. And yet there were some real estate agents that were like, you know what? This is my livelihood. I'm not shutting my business down. That was actually my choice. I kept trucking along. When all of this happened, life in America, no matter what decisions that we made, individually, corporate-wide, brokerage, family, our life, and the common thread among everything was that our life in America shifted tremendously. And people had to adjust to this changing environment. One of those major changes was when most of the churches ceased to meet in person. And therefore, a lot of the pastors developed a way to broadcast their services online. And it probably is somewhat comparable to Jeremiah standing at the gates and shouting for the people to hear what he had to say. Online services were great, and it worked for a little while as we were all very unsure at first of what was going to happen in COVID and how this new virus was going to, corrupt society, if you will, or worse, how it was going to affect our families. And, it was a very worrisome couple of months for most everyone. But after a while, many people started to grow weary of, not being able to see their loved ones. And in fact, there were stories where hospitals would not allow even family members to come in and say their goodbyes to their parents or a loved one. It was heart-wrenching to think about it now. And there were several pastors who were so passionate about the importance of corporate worship and collectively hearing God's voice through praise that they were even arrested due to their steadfast decisions to continue to meet. And there were a couple, I believe, in Florida that were arrested because of their staunch belief that we are going to worship. Their arrest came even though they arranged to worship even outside. I remember seeing, the precautionary measures that they took of safety for the people. And they would, have outside things, and chairs would be put together with their family, and then there would be some distance, and then chairs, and then distance and chairs and stuff. There were people that were still trying to maintain how important it is to collectively worship with people, that they went to such great extremes and got arrested. Now, there is just something special about the atmosphere during corporate worship, which is one of the reasons why I am such a believer of being at a church with other people and developing those relationships. That's how we grow, and that's the importance of collective worship, corporate worship. And while I love singing in my car with the music blaring, and, I even talked about that in a recent podcast about one of the songs that I love to sing, and, how that even nature sings. I just love that atmosphere between me and Jesus during those times. There's truly something different, how I feel in my car versus going to church and having a corporate worship experience as well. And I know that we can have atmosphere of worship anywhere, but there is a reason that Jesus wants us to assemble in his house or church locations. Being in a room full of fellow believers who are all united in worship is literally electrifying, and it can do a lot to our hearts, especially when we join in that worship. And I'm convinced when we set up an atmosphere of worship, it truly does help us hear his voice easier. And, I've often thought of, why is it that we go into church and start the atmosphere with worship? Well, we bring in the atmosphere of worship and get our hearts in tune, and then the pastor comes in and delivers a word, and we're in tune to hearing in a deeper level. And so I just love that atmosphere. And so today's challenge to dig deeper is this. There is this beautiful song written by Elevation Worship, and it is called Here as in Heaven. So your challenge to dig deeper is to look up this song on YouTube or any kind of music platform and listen to it with your eyes closed. Turn it on several times throughout the day today and take note of how you feel when you invite the Spirit of the Lord into where you are at. And feel how you, really be in tune with how you feel when you're listening to this song. And if you do not attend a church in person, my last challenge is to continue to consider finding one. Throughout the course of this podcast, that is important. So your challenge, look up Here as in Heaven by Elevation Worship, and just close your eyes and listen to it, and really, really invite the Spirit of the Lord into where you're at. And then after you do this, whether it's several times throughout the day or tonight, pull out your journal, and I want you to write down what your thoughts are about today's devotion, and especially about this song. These are little things that can help us grow even a little closer to God's heart when we hear praise songs like this. And, it could be listening to this song while you're working out, while you're running, while you're walking and doing your steps. It could be listening to this song while you are in the zone of cooking for your family. It could be in the car with your children. It could be, multiple different ways and multiple different times throughout the day. Focus on this song. And I love it. And I hope that the nuggets that get into your spirit continue to help you get closer and closer to Jesus. And that's what this devotional is all about. And I'm excited to continually walk through this journey with you. So until tomorrow, keep rinsing, reflecting, and repeating. God bless you.